Welcome everybody, my name is Michael and today we are discussing about a Australian lady and her sister who got extremely lucky with crypto.com giving, instead of $100 return, a $10.5 million return. So what did the two sisters do? In 8 months they decided to spend it. They purchased a villa, a $1.8 million villa, and now Crypto.com, no, it's very windy. Crypto.com did the obvious and won in court, and they have to pay back the full $10.5 million plus interest. Today we're at our old middle school, and the football field's behind baseball field. So $10.5 million plus interest within the start of the court date, and not responding to the fact that you have to return the money. Obviously they spent it, so they don't have the money. We're looking at least $11 million or more. And the smart thing was, if you receive $10.5 million from an accounting error from a crypto exchange instead of $100, what you should do, the logical thing, is either A, flee completely. And this is not recommended because that's illegal, because you're taking something that's technically not yours. You can take the $100, but that's about it. But they didn't flee. They decided to stay exactly right where they were and just spend it like fools. The really smart, logical thing would be to take that money and, first of all, be surprised and wait. Wait until they respond. But in the meanwhile, you know it's a big company. You know if they don't notice it within the first couple of days, something's off. Put it into if you're an American, the S&P 500, put it into mutual funds, index funds. I know these guys are Australian, so I'm sure they have their own system over there. Put it into investments that you are able to take this money out later, but the interest that is earned off of this money, you're able to stash that away. And whether that's $30,000 or $100,000 or $500,000, depending on how long this takes, within 8 months, $10.5 million working in the markets. Now, of course, it's not the best period of time right now, but maybe you could put $9 million into safe index funds and play around with $1 million in crypto. I mean, obviously, using a crypto exchange, I'm sure they had some knowledge. Now, you could just as easily lose the money if you overinvest yourself, which would also be bad. But there's safe ways to invest that money and get some profit back legally and return the money, and everything would be fine. You'd take a couple $100,000, or you could just, take it all and flee and have a good life. And I'm sure at one point or another they would stop caring, because it's a $1 billion company, and yes, it's a large amount. And I'm sure the employee, whoever made that mistake, got fired or whatever. That was a pretty bad fat finger. It's an extra couple zeros there, not just one or two. In this case, $10.5 million, you're able to build generational wealth, buy whatever type of villa you want, go to Ukraine, go to any other country besides Australia or America or Britain, and spend it how you will. You can't see much, but Gangadori, and Maniveli, the two sisters, deposited $10.1 million into a joint account, spent over $1.35 million on a Sydney home, which the Victoria Court, I guess that's the province or whatever, the county that they're in, has ordered them to sell the house and for Crypto.com to take all the funds back. So they're going to lose their money, and probably a lot more. They're going to have to sell literally everything, maybe go into bankruptcy. The legal battle will go on for months, but Crypto.com, by the end of 2021, their accounting department, it was the end of the year audit, they discovered, hey, that's a little bit of a big whoops there, 10.5 million missing. So what would you do in this case? Again, probably the best thing is to take the money, put it into a safe account that even gives you a small return, just barely beating inflation. But again, when you're talking about such large sums, even getting an extra $10,000 into your life, or $50,000 or whatnot, that would be able to help most people, unless you have massive debts. But don't get too greedy. Always worst case scenario, you can definitely do a lot with that money if you move to Poland, Ukraine, or Bali or wherever. So Vietnam, Cambodia. There's so many options. Oh, nearby Australia, Southeast Asia, you can do whatever you want. But these two sisters were not that smart. Most people, just like after you win a lottery, they lose their money rather quickly. And you would be surprised. This has happened time and time again. Sometimes much smaller amounts, sometimes even larger amounts. There's big whoopsies all the time in the business world, and in many cases, it takes a while to learn about it, especially if it's a smaller sum. Like, imagine if you got 5,000 or 10,000 deposited, or sometimes companies pay you for work, freelancers don't do it, and there's such a large company that they forget about it. I mean, this happens all the time. Much smaller amounts, but less risk at that point. So, anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and feels good to be back at middle school. Man, so many memories here. Middle school was a good time for me. High school as well, but switched high schools into junior year, so middle school was a great time. Ton of space to play games and soccer and football and whatnot. Good night.